what's up everybody? I'm live here today and I'm going to show you two easy and quick movements. These are super important movements because if you don't have a connection to these movements, then you will end up with pain. The more connected you are to these movements, the less pain you will have. So before I get started, what I'm going to do is just show you, one of the things we're going to do is anterior and posterior pelvic tilting. So really simple, how I can show you is a glass. Think of this as your pelvis. When you do anterior pelvic tilt, you're going to tilt the glass forward. That's your pelvis. When you do a posterior pelvic tilt, you're going to tilt backwards. And I'm going to show you that in a second. The other thing is going to be hip hinging, so hinging at the hips. If you can't do these things consciously like that, simple and easy, you're going to end up with pain because certain muscles are going to get weak and tired, and all the stress is going to end up on the disc. So if you don't know how to do these, I highly suggest you watch this and continue to practice these until you get it. These are movements that we also have in our programs. And so let's get right into it. So what you're going to do, one of the best ways to do this is get your elbows up on the wall. You're going to slide your feet back, feet shoulder width apart, and to do the hip hinging, now I'm going to go into the hip hinging second. The first thing we're going to do is anterior and posterior pelvic tilting. So all you have to do is get on the wall, and we're going to do an anterior pelvic tilt. So I'm going to tilt my pelvis forward, and now you see lordosis. This is a curvature, a bigger curvature than natural or neutral spinal position in my lower back. That's when you know you're in anterior pelvic tilt. When you're in posterior pelvic tilt, the back's going to flatten. Okay, so we're just going to do that a few times. Anterior, posterior pelvic tilt. Anterior, posterior pelvic tilt. Now, for those who are suffering with back pain right now, if you have an acute injury, this might feel painful. So we always say don't move into pain. If it just feels a slight discomfort, you can slightly mobilize it because it will actually help you get blood flow, nutrients, and oxygen to the area. So again, anterior pelvic tilt, we see more lordosis or more of a curvature in the lower back, and then we see it flattening out with posterior, anterior, posterior pelvic tilt, anterior, posterior pelvic tilt. Also, while you're doing this, if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them below. We'll get back to you. And also just let us know where you're checking in from, what part of the world, what part of the country, what state you're in. We'd love to hear from all people all around the world, you know, what they might be going through and where they're coming from. So, all right, so that's anterior and posterior pelvic tilting. So we're going posterior, anterior, posterior, anterior. Some of you, just from doing this, will start to feel a little bit of relief because now the brain is waking up and it's saying, hey, that's what I wanted you to do. I wanted you to send information to this area in my spine, and that's why I was telling you that there's pain, because you were disregarding me. So this is how the body gives feedback, and it's a beautiful thing. Okay, so now we're going to go into hip hinging, which is totally different. So hip hinging would be in the same position, but now your spine is in neutral. So it won't be in anterior, it won't be posterior, it will be in neutral. That's where the spine sits in the pelvis in a neutral position, right? Now from here, we're going to just push our butt back. We can slide our elbows down and then come back up. I'm not bending at the knees. My knees are just slightly bent, shoulder width apart, and now I'm just pushing my butt back and then bringing it forward. And again, pushing my butt back and bringing it forward. Okay, so try those out. Now, we're doing hip hinging. Sometimes I'll tell people this is the progression of doing a deadlift, and they'll go, oh, no, I don't do deadlifts. I never do deadlifts. Well, guess what? You're doing deadlifts every day of your life. If you pick something up, you're doing a deadlift. So you want to know how to do it correctly, because if you're not doing it correctly, you will damage the spine. We only have so much use of the disc, and every time we put pressure and stress on the disc without the strength around it, we're damaging. So I'll show you a progression real quick in this video. So I was showing you hip hinging from here. Well, the progression of that is that you continue to be able to hip hinge without spinal flexion, so keeping the back erect, because you have strength in the muscles now. And now you go lower with the hips because your hips are mobile now through doing programs and stretching and strengthening. And now you can squat because you have stronger legs, and now you can pick something up. If you look at my position and my posture, I'm in a great position to pick something up without damaging the spine. Okay, so we just went over two things. The pelvic tilt, anterior and posterior pelvic tilt, super important for your body, for your brain, sending messages, and the hip hinging. Hip hinging is essential, so these two movements I would highly recommend you practice over and over again. If you haven't done our Back Pain Relief for Life program, we take you step by step in specific movements done in a specific way, a formula to kind of reach up into your brain and change the pattern so that you're out of pain. So some of these movements I just showed you right now are incorporated in it, and the goal is to get the brain connected with the body. So the more you move good quality movements, right, making sure you're doing biomechanically correct. Biomechanically correct means the right way that your body is designed to move. If you're moving incorrectly, you put more damage on the spine. So I'll just show you again real quick. If I go to do a hip hinge and I get here and then I start to round the back and I pick something up, all the force ends up in my lower back, and then I'm causing damage. If I know how to stay straight and then go down deeper and pick it up, I'm now strengthening my body and protecting my spine then and into the future, because as I strengthen that movement pattern, I'm now protecting the back and the area around it. So again, just to recap, we did posterior and anterior pelvic tilt and hip hinging, two key movements that are essential if you want to get pain-free. You got to learn them. Any comments, questions, go ahead and leave them below. Have a great day.